August 6, 1945, at 8:15 Japan time, the world's first wartime atomic bomb was dropped and exploded over Hiroshima. The following day, President Truman announced it to the world. Only then did the Japanese government know what had happened. It was 8 days before World War II was to officially end. At that time, the population of Hiroshima was 350,000. The number of people killed by the blast of the atomic bomb is anywhere from 200,000 to 240,000. An accurate count is impossible, as official records have been lost or destroyed. There are only 6 existing photographs of that August day. This is one of them. People of Hiroshima who survived the atomic explosion were not informed as to how deadly the bomb would be. Nearly all of the people in this photograph died within a week or two of this moment, without knowing why. This is a view of the lifeless city of the next day. Although more than 5,000 photographs and numerous feet of movie film were taken within the first few months of the bombing, the American occupation forces in November of 1945 confiscated them and ordered the original negatives to be burned. People from all walks of life felt an intense need to record what they had seen and the experiences they had had. This is the story of 2 painters who have spent their lives since that day protesting the atomic bomb and working for an end to war. Maruki and Maruki experienced Hiroshima immediately after the atomic bomb explosion. Iri was born in Hiroshima in 1901. Toshi is from Hokkaido and was born in 1912. Toshi trained in Western art, oil painting, watercolor, pencil, and charcoal. She is an excellent portrait painter. Her ability to capture precise emotion through her own ability to feel has touched people all over the world. Her love for children has inspired a multitude of delightful illustrations for books of fairy tales from around the world. Iri works in the traditional art style of India ink on Japanese mulberry paper. His work has tended toward dynamically large screens since early in his career. He combines water and ink and moves rapidly with large brushes. The ink becomes a part of the paper to create a depth that does not fade with time. The blending of their individual techniques has contributed significantly to the impact of the work they have done together in the past 40 years. Maruki Gallery for the Hiroshima panels is located in Higashi-Matsuyama, some 50 kilometers from Tokyo. It was built expressly to contain the large murals they began to paint after their experience in Hiroshima. Each of the Hiroshima panels measures 2 meters in height and 7 meters in length. They have been exhibited around the world and have been viewed by an estimated 100 million people. The first Hiroshima panel, Ghosts, was exhibited in 1950 when Japan was still occupied by the American forces. Because of the very real fear of censorship, it was shown with the title August 6th. Iri explains, We consciously painted this first panel as a realistic record of what we had seen. At that time, anything about the atomic bomb was still totally suppressed. The only photograph released was the one of the mushroom cloud. We just couldn't let that go on. We had been there. We had seen it. Iri and Toshi rushed to their home in Hiroshima on the first train from Tokyo, 3 days after the explosion. This is what met their eyes. At the first showing of this painting 5 years later, all gasped in true astonishment. Some began to say, "These are all exaggerated. This is just anti-American propaganda." They weren't really all naked, were they? The 1979 official report states, the temperature of the explosion itself was several million degrees centigrade. The ball of flame it created reached a temperature of 300,000 degrees centigrade. The temperature at ground level is estimated to have been from 3,000 to 4,000 degrees centigrade. This means that there was, for an instant, a ball of flame as hot as the sun at 500 meters overhead. Clothes and fabrics were instantly incinerated, and the force of the blast on the ground exceeded the speed of sound. Skin, which was exposed, suffered instantaneous burning, blistering, and bursting. Large patches of skin hung from people's bodies. Masses of people suffered charring straight through to their internal organs and were killed instantly. Masses of people died within minutes. When this painting was done, none of the statistics were known to anyone. During the first exhibition of this painting, among those who came were those who had experienced Hiroshima themselves. One said, "Why didn't you paint the baby like so many of them really were, charred, burned, and dead?" Others said, "Don't stop with this one. Keep on painting what you and I both saw in Hiroshima." The second panel, Fire, and the third panel, Water, were completed that same year. These paintings also attempt to portray the scene at Hiroshima as it was those first moments. The official report goes on to state, of those within a 1.2 kilometer radius of the epicenter, at least 50% died instantly. As the center is approached, as many as 80% to 100% of the people suffered instant death. Nearly everyone who could testify as to the scene at the center of the explosion was dead. Toshi and Iri combined what they heard from those still alive with what they saw themselves, and their imaginations sharpened by their own experiences there. Reaching at last the safety of the river, the young mother found her baby already dead. Toshi says, "The mother and child is a universal theme spanning many ages and cultures. But there has been none so tragic as this for me. It was very painful to put it down on paper." In the fourth panel, Rainbow, American soldiers held as prisoners of war are also present as victims. In an area of more than 10 kilometers in every direction from the epicenter, a sticky rain black from debris and ashes of the explosion and fires fell on all and all. When the rain finally stopped, the people saw a rainbow appear and arch across the sky. They didn't yet know that the radioactive rain would claim their lives as surely as the explosion had claimed so many others. Soon the radiation would cause them to cough and vomit blood and pass blood and die. The radioactivity seeped into the very soil and was to affect tens of thousands more who had not been directly in the explosion area. No one knew yet that the radioactivity would penetrate as far as unborn babies, and that they would be born suffering its various effects. After a month of rescue work in Hiroshima, Toshi, too, began to develop symptoms of radiation sickness, and they had to return to Tokyo. During that month, they say it was all they could do to stay alive, and to try to help others to stay alive. This is the 8th panel, Rescue. In 1981, this detail of rescue was deleted from the high school textbooks. "It's too tragic," was the reason given by the Ministry of Education. Toshi replied, "At the epicenter, there wasn't one person with all the 5 fingers left like these have. The maggots and flies crawling in and out of the wounds and cuts, we didn't put those in. The smell of the bodies being cremated day after day, we didn't include that either." 40 days after the atomic bomb, Hiroshima was struck by a severe typhoon. With it went the corpses, the burned rubble, and the maggots to the sea. The only movie film of Hiroshima that exists is that taken after the typhoon. Atomic Desert, the 6th panel, records the helplessness and hopelessness that Iri and Toshi must have felt. "The houses are all burned down. We are all out in the rain. There is no electricity, no newspaper, no radio, no doctor. Only the dead and wounded bodies with maggots inside and out and the buzzing of the flies," Toshi wrote. In Boys and Girls, the 5th panel, there seems to be a different force at work, in that they seem to have attempted to restrain themselves from teaching us the whole truth. It is known that on that morning, the day of the bomb, a class of school children had been helping with the tearing down of old buildings as a fire prevention measure. They say that out of that class of more than 50 children, only one survived. This young girl's beautiful black hair is still upswept into braids. She didn't look like this anymore. The painting shows the glass embedded in only one young body. In truth, there was glass embedded all over all of their bodies. There weren't any without cuts and wounds. Toshi washed their cuts with her own tears. She tried to heal their wounds the best she could. Bamboo Thicket, the 7th panel, is considered a prime example of Iri's skill in traditional techniques of painting bamboo. For ages, Japanese people have considered the bamboo forests a safe refuge during earthquakes or other natural disasters. Bamboo is thought to possess a spirit, and this spirit has the power to calm the human soul. The bamboo was also victim to the atomic bomb. After the atomic bombs in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Bikini Atoll in the Pacific was the test site for the hydrogen bomb. A Japanese fishing boat, the Lucky Dragon, from the port of Yaizu, was in the area. Radiation suffered by the workers caused the death of one of them within a few months. This is the 9th panel, Yaizu. It was 1954. This hydrogen bomb, called Bravo, was 15 megatons. This means it was 750 times as powerful as the one in Hiroshima. These figures, being totally beyond imagination, Toshi and Iri concentrated on the protest expressed on the faces of the people of Yaizu, that they could so identify with themselves. This is the 10th panel, Petition. A petition calling for a total ban on the atomic and hydrogen bombs and a total end to war was begun. Women signed, children signed, the elderly signed, men signed, laborers alongside professionals, people from virtually all walks of life united in this giant protest and produced 3.5 million signatures. In 1956, the panels were taken on exhibition tour to China, North Korea, and all over Western Europe. From there, they went to Australia, New Zealand, then to South Africa. Next, on to Eastern Europe and to the Soviet Union. After 8 years on tour, the panels were returned to Japan. They had not yet been to the United States. People from all over the world were saying, "We must show these to the people of the country that dropped the bombs." During the years when the panels were on tour, Iri had time to reflect on them. "I think the panels have the potential to produce good in the world, and that is good. But I wish I had not had to be the artist who painted scenes of horror and tragedy. I would much rather have been painting oxen, or mountains, or plum blossoms." This is Repose, a painting Iri did during this period, probably reflecting his strong yearning for inner peace. In 1967, old and new friends of the Marukis gathered together with the purpose of building a gallery to house the panels, which now numbered 10. The panels were no longer considered the property of the artists. They now somehow seem to belong to all people everywhere. A few years later, a small shrine for remembering those who lost their lives was built alongside the gallery of lumber from Hiroshima. It had been 15 years since that day in Hiroshima. Toshi was again driven by the memory of the women and children she had seen, and once more poured her compassion into Mother and Child, the 11th panel. Many babies were born suffering the effects of the atomic bomb. By the end of the 1950s, the piercing facts of radiation were beginning to be understood. This painting seems to echo that grief, and yet the mother and child theme can always inspire hope. It was 24 years after Hiroshima that the 12th panel, Floating Lanterns, was painted, calling on the tradition of lighting a candle and symbolically sending the souls of the dead to rest in water. Thinking of each dead child and wondering what each would be doing now, they painted their feeling in deep shades of red, yellow, and black. 1970, the time had come for the panels to go on exhibition in the United States. In the fourth panel, Rainbow, they had painted American soldiers as victims alongside the Japanese people. Now, on their way to the United States, they hoped that at least this would help the American public to identify with the people of Hiroshima. They were hardly prepared for the mixed reactions in the United States. One teacher, who had helped very much in arranging the exhibition tour, asked them this: if an artist in China painted the massacre the Chinese people suffered at the hands of the Japanese army and asked you to exhibit it in Japan, what would be your reaction? Some years later, they would paint the rape of Nanking. The 13th panel remembers the 23 American prisoners of war who had been held in Hiroshima. They didn't neglect the fact that the prisoners still alive after the explosion and fires were beaten and tortured by their enraged captors and the crazed citizens who found them. Toshi wonders, if I had been there when they found them, and the soldiers handed me a stick and ordered me to beat them, what would I have done? Our hands trembled with this question in our minds as we painted Death of American Prisoners of War. The assailants have been buried beneath Erie's brushstrokes. They thought deeply about the women prisoners. The 14th panel, Crows, focuses on another aspect of cruelty to another people. It teaches us of the forced labor camp in Nagasaki that held 5,000 Korean people and what happened to them during the second atomic bomb attack and its aftermath. The corpses of the Korean people were left on the streets until the very last. Crows came down to prey upon them. Crows came to eat the eyes of the Korean people's bodies. Eat the eyes, tells a report from Nagasaki. With this painting, Irie and Toshi felt they had begun to find some sort of balance between pity and sympathy for Japanese as victim and shame and guilt of Japanese as assailant. The Marukis found themselves pulled to Poland to see Auschwitz. Looking at Auschwitz with eyes of Hiroshima, it was an immediately powerful experience. Unlike Hiroshima, where the facts are fading into dim history, the facts of the 4 million people murdered in Auschwitz are very clearly preserved and presented. The contrast is sharp. The gas chambers, the gallows, the mountain of eyeglasses, the rugs woven of human hair. Viewing all these things could do nothing but bring back one by one, 100 by 100, 1,000 by 1,000, the memory of all those whose lives were so meaninglessly seized from them. In preparation for painting Tragedy at Auschwitz, Toshi and Irie spent months in Paris doing figure studies of Western faces and bodies. The finished painting effects a natural mingling of Western and Eastern technique and expression. 3 meters high and 16 meters long, it is the largest of their large murals. Returning to Japan, they turned their attention back to the war in the Pacific. The Battle of Okinawa portrays how the conflict between the approaching American army and one of the last stands of the Japanese army fell heavily on the heads of the common people. Okinawa, in the midst of a glitteringly blue-green sea, a bright red hibiscus flower. The softly twanging sounds of a shamisen from early morning till late at night. At the heart of those sights and sounds, though, are the remembrances and sadnesses of loved ones lost in those days so long ago, yet so recent. You will not be taken prisoners of the Americans, the Okinawan people were told by the Japanese army. You will die first. You will kill each other first. We will kill you first. Child was forced to kill parent. Parent was forced to kill child. Upon hearing witness to those who lived through it, at the critical point, things suddenly become a vacuum. In this vacuum, we can understand only with our soul. We can relate to it only with our spirit. So wrote a minister in Okinawa. Maruki were not there at the epicenter of the atomic bomb, August 6, 1945. They did not see the absolute hell of the first moments. Perhaps it is because of this fact that their quest for finding what it was is so passionate. Perhaps the void that exists in their minds has been the source of their creativity. Express it again, express it over and over. With each expression, they approach closer and closer to the epicenter. These two people who saw Hiroshima have spent their lives expressing what they saw. They leave their paintings as a testament to coming generations. But have they been able to express the horrors of war fully enough? The many, many children who come to the gallery today have never known war. Often takes time to talk with them. Recently, a junior high school girl said to her, "I guess we shouldn't have nuclear bombs because they're so terrible and everything. But I don't really know because I've never really seen what one is like." Toshi replied gently, "If you were to really see what one is like, you probably wouldn't live to think about it. You have the gift of a lively imagination. Please use this wonderful imagination to create a future full of life for yourself and the whole earth."
99 Jahre ließen keinen Platz für Sieger. Kriegsminister gibt's nicht